Okay, so today what we are going to discuss is about recoverability of schedules. So here the thing is, okay, why we go for recoverability is if for example, okay, a particular transaction fails, okay, then what we need to do is we will if it is a single transaction, we need to roll back the transaction. That means roll back means we need to undo the effect, okay, that is done by the transaction. This is done for ensuring the atomicity property of the transaction. So, but in concurrent transaction, okay, concurrent execution, okay, it is also necessary that in order to ensure the atomicity property, a certain transaction that is dependent on other, okay, that also need to be aborted. So that is what the recoverability says actually. Okay, so if it is a single transaction, we can roll back, okay, abort and roll back, okay, if there is any failure. But in concurrent execution, there may be dependent transactions in the sense one value is written by one transaction and it is read by some other transaction which is in execution. So such kind of transactions also need to be aborted, okay, to ensure the atomicity property. Okay, so this is what the basic behind the recoverable schedule. Now consider this schedule, okay, that is given in this figure, okay, that is simply 4 operations it is mentioned. Like T8, sorry, the transaction T8 performs read, write, and then T9 read of A, and finally read of B by transaction T8. Now you assume that T9 is performing only one operation. That is simply it is reading the value of the data item A. So if the system allows, okay, the transaction T9 to commit after it has executed the read operation, okay, so like that the system is permitting, okay, consider a scenario. Since it is the only one operation and it has committed right now, okay, after performing the operation it has committed. Now the thing is, after commit of this transaction T9, the actually this transaction is executed T8 because it is having more operations, right? So it is executing and intermediately there is some failure in this transaction T8. Okay. So T8 fails before it commits. Okay. This T8 fails before it commits. So how the atomicity property can be ensured over here? So since T9 has read the value of the data item A that is written by transaction T8, if there is a failure in transaction T8, okay, we need to abort transaction T9 also, right? Dependent transaction also need to be aborted. But in this case, T9 has committed before. So once committed, it cannot be aborted. So to ensure atomicity property, okay, we need to abort this, but we are not able to do so. So such kind of schedules, okay, such kind of schedules are told to be non-recoverable schedules. Okay, since it has been committed, it cannot abort later. Okay, how we can prevent this kind of situation? How we can prevent this kind of situation? Students?
Committing only if it has finished transaction or something.
Yeah. So that is what we need to do. Okay, to have a recoverable schedule for each pair of transactions Ti and Tj. Okay, Ti and Tj, those are two transactions that are executed in a concurrent manner. So Tj reads a data item that is previously written by Ti. Okay, there is a situation that Tj is reading the data item that is previously written by Ti. If it is the case, okay, then the commit operation of Ti should appear before the commit operations of Tj. If it happens like this, then we will get a recoverable schedule. So Ti and Tj are the transaction, and Tj is reading the value that is previously written by Ti. If it is the case, then Ti's commit operation should appear before the commit operation of Tj. So if we have the situation like this, then obviously we can have a recoverable schedule. Okay. So that is what the recoverability says. Okay. The recoverable schedule says. So, and also, okay, we may have one more situation called, the cascading rollback. Okay. It is also called as cascadeless schedules. Okay. Cascadeless schedules. Now, in this case, you can see. So the cascading rollback is a scenario in which if a single transaction failure leads to a series of transaction rollbacks. Okay, if there is a series of transaction rollbacks because of a single transaction failure, then we say that it is a cascading rollback. Okay, and we need to have a cascadeless schedule. So since we have a dependent transaction, obviously, if there is a failure in one transaction, then it leads to subsequent abort, okay, or rollbacks, okay, of the dependent transactions. Okay, so say for example, in this case, okay, T10, we have three operations, and T11, okay, it is written and then read by T11. Here also written by transaction T11 and it is read by T12. So those are dependent on each other. Okay. Now, for example, T10 fails. Okay. This transaction fails. Okay. To ensure atomicity property, what we need to do, the dependent transactions also need to be rolled back. Okay, aborted and rolled back. So it causes T11 and T12 to roll back. Okay, so this situation is called as cascading rollback. Okay, and so this anyhow this will waste can lead to the undoing of significant amount of work that is done by certain transactions. So now to have a cascadeless schedule, what we need to do? To avoid cascadeless schedule, what we can do? We can, sorry, to have a cascadeless schedule, what we can do? Okay, the same thing only. Okay, so if for each pair of transactions, Ti and Tj, okay, Ti and Tj, if Tj reads the data item previously written by Ti, okay, the commit operation of Ti should appear before the read operation of Tj. So the commit operation of commit operation of this Ti, okay, should appear before the read operation itself. Okay, so the recoverability says that it should appear before the dependent transaction. Here, before the read operation itself, if the commit of the particular transaction appears, then obviously we will not get any cascading rollback situation. We'll be having a cascadeless schedule. Okay. So this is what the cascadeless schedules and the recoverable schedule meant for. Okay. So now, yeah, we can have an example also. For example, yeah, you consider this. Yeah, schedules. Sorry, yeah. So RFX. RFZ. And here R of X, R of Y, W of X, C1. Okay. And then W of Y, C3 has committed, and then RFY, W of Z, W of Y, C2. Okay. So this is the schedule I am just giving for you. Just tell me whether this schedule is a recoverable schedule or it is a a cascadeless schedule, or both recoverable and cascadeless schedule. Just tell me.
This is not recoverable because C2 is committing after C3.
What? Oh yeah, it is not recoverable because
C2 is committing after C3.
C2. Okay. But the thing is, yeah, only what we need to consider W, right? And previous update that is written by that we need to W or conflict here also. Okay, that only we have to consider. Here W of X is there, but there is no read operation. Okay, now need to worry about that. Another W operation is W of Y only. Okay. So here it is written, the rule says that if to be recoverable schedule, okay, the commit operation of what T3 should appear before T2, right? So it appears. Commit operation of T3 appears before T2. Okay, that is the point for recoverable schedule. And for the cascadeless schedule, the commit operation should appear before the read operation of the corresponding transaction. Okay, before the read operation of the corresponding transaction, T3 has committed. Okay. And for W of Z and W of Y, there are no more reads after that. So nothing to worry about that. Only thing we need to consider here is this one. Are you able to get me?
But R of X for T3 is being read before committing of 1 no, ma'am.
R of X? Yeah.
In T3, they are reading X before 1 is getting committed. So will that
Here,
be a problem?
yeah.
Will that be cascadeless or not?
It is a cascadeless. That is what I'm telling. Okay. You see the definition. If a transaction Tj reads a data item previously written by a transaction Ti, the commit operation of Ts should appear before the commit operation of Tj. Right. Okay. So we need to consider only this case. Okay. Tj reads a data item previously written by a transaction Ti. That is the thing we just check it out for a recoverable schedule. So then which statements and all we need to consider?
Here also T3 is reading X, ma'am, which is written by T1.
Reads a data item previously written. Where it is? No R of here W of X. It's there here only, right? After that only R of X should appear, right? Previously written value. Are you able to get me?
So if the read operation is after write means it should.
RW is not considered, only WR. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so W of X is there. We consider W of X. Okay. After that, any read operation on the same data item is there or not, you check. Initial W and then any read is not read operation is there or not. That only we need to check. Here W of X is there, but there is no more read for the corresponding data item, right? So nothing to worry about that. Okay, RW is not considered. Cascadeless and recoverable schedule will not consider RW conflict. Okay, only WR conflict it will check it over. Okay, and similarly, you can see here only W of Y is there. Subsequently, it is read by the transaction T2. Only this case, okay, we need to consider in the recoverable or cascadeless schedule. Okay, and the commit operation is appearing before, and also it is appearing before the read operation. So both it leads to a recoverable and as well as cascadeless schedule. Okay, and here also W of Z and W of Y is there. Okay, but there is no furthermore read on the data item. So nothing to worry about this case also. Okay. Are you able to get me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So this is what the cascadeless or recoverability means. Okay. Maybe any other example? Okay. Yeah. So I'll be giving more examples so that you can get some better idea. Yeah. So just tell me. So T1, T2, R of A, W of A, R of A. Okay. So C, it is committed over here. So whether it is a recoverable schedule or non-recoverable schedule. Students? Students, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. This schedule, whether it is recoverable or not recoverable.
This is recoverable because all the transaction of T1 is completed before T2 is being read.
Okay. So what is the condition? Okay, but you are not clear, I think.
Ma'am,
Okay,
there
that
is no
is.
commit in T1.
Yeah, there is no commit in T1. Okay, but here it is committing. Yeah. Whether it is recoverable or non-recoverable.
So non-recoverable.
So yeah, that is what it is, non-recoverable. Okay. So if I'm having like this R of A and W of A, okay, T1, T2. Okay, this one commits or aborted. Okay, this one also commit or abort. Okay, so any kind of thing make it happen. Okay, commit or roll back. Okay. So for this case, whether it is recoverable or non-recoverable. Whether it is recoverable or not recoverable.
We can't say because there are no commits.
So here, yeah, it is commit or rollback. Okay, something it is given. Okay, commit. Okay, if you feel okay, then commit operation. Okay, R of A committed, W of A or committed. Okay, whether it is recoverable or not. Whether it is recoverable.
Yes, ma'am.
How? How?
There are no read operations in T1 in between the write operations in
Yes.
T2 and the
Okay.
commit.
Yeah. So it is a RW dependency. Okay, it doesn't bother about that. Okay. Anyhow, W of A, there is no, after that, there is no read operation. Okay. So it is a recoverable schedule. Also, you can see where if it is here, we are having W of A. Okay. And rather than R of A. Okay. Only WW dependency is there. Okay. It is also a recoverable schedule only. Okay. So it consider only what WR dependency, the recoverability and cascadeless property just checks only for WR dependency. Okay. So more example like yeah. Okay. What about this case?
Not recoverable, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, it is not recoverable. Okay, so like that we can decide whether it is recoverable or non-recoverable. Okay, so now we can have a overview. So like we have actually a strict schedule. Okay, and then cascadeless. Okay, so and then we have recoverable. Okay, and finally irrecoverable or non-recoverable. Okay, so actually this is the hierarchy we have. Okay, like here this recoverable schedules and as well cascadeless schedules. Okay, both are not free from inconsistent state. Okay, why it is told to be? Both recoverable and cascadeless are not free from inconsistent state. Why it is told to be? Students, what?
Not
Why
sure.
it's? Yeah, not sure. Okay, because it addresses only which conflict?
WR.
WR conflict it addresses. Okay, there are a few more conflicts that may present if even though those schedules are recoverable or cascadeless. Okay, other RW, WW conflicts may be there. Okay, so but all the conflicts are just if we are not having any kind of these conflicts only, we have a consistent database, right? Okay, but since it considers only WR dependency, recoverable and cascadeless schedules are told to be what that may lead to inconsistent state of the database. Okay, but all the recoverable schedules are cascadeless. Okay, so but all the cascadeless schedules are not recoverable, so that is what the hierarchy means. Strict. Okay, there is one more schedule called a strict schedule. So here that we having discussed, the strict schedule is the one. It has the transaction that neither read or write a data item until the last transaction that has written X is committed. Okay. So here what it will do is strict schedule. Okay. Strict schedule. What it will do is it will not read or write the data item. Okay. Write the data item until the last transaction that has written X has committed. So read or write, okay, of the data item A, read of A or write of A. So both will get prevented until this transaction, whatever it has written, has committed. Okay. So that is what the strict schedule says. So which conflicts and all is addressed by strict schedule? Yeah. Which conflicts are addressed by strict schedule then?
RR and RW.
Or
RW and RR.
R.
Oh, no, no.
RR is not a conflict at all.
RW.
Or W. Okay, so W of A first previously written and then only it won't read or write. Then which conflicts are addressed? It won't read or write until the previously written transaction has committed. Which conflicts are addressed in the strict schedule then?
WR and WW.
Yeah, WR and WW. Okay. So these conflicts are addressed by the strict schedule. Okay. So other cascadeless and recoverable schedules will address only WR conflict. Strict schedule addresses both WR, WW dependency. Still inconsistency may be there because of RW dependency. Okay. RW conflict in strict schedule. So this is what the hierarchy and these are all some of the definitions for recoverable, cascadeless, and other kind of what definitions what we have elaborated. So now, yeah. I told you in the last class itself, there is another way for checking the serializability. Okay, serializability of the schedule or the transactions. Okay, how it can be done. So we can do by what drawing a graph. Okay, so the vertices are nothing but the transaction and edges. Okay, edges may be there if if there are dependent operations, okay, between those transactions. If there is some conflict, okay, or WW or WW conflicts are there, then there will be an edge from one transaction to the other. So like that, we need to draw the precedence graph, okay. And if the graph has a cycle, then we say that it cannot, this can be, it is not serializable, okay. If there is no cycle, then we go for topological sorting, okay, to find out the order in which the transactions can be executed serially, okay. So this is what we got from to get a conflict serializable schedule. So this is the procedure, okay. As I told in the last class, not only we can go for swapping the non-conflicting instructions to check whether it leads to a conflict serializable schedule or not. Like that also we can check. That is one procedure. And this is very simple procedure to check. Simply we have to draw the precedence graph, okay, and then we need to find out whether there is a cycle or not. If there is no cycle, then it can be serializable, and we can see the order in which the transactions can be executed. That is, the serializability order of the transaction can be got by topological sorting, okay. So this is what the testing of serializability meant for. Okay, and cycle detection algorithms can be used, okay, for checking whether there is a cycle in the graph or not. And if it is there, then we can easily say that it is not a conflict serializable schedule, okay. And so consider this example schedule. So how many dependencies are there, okay, that how many conflicts are there between those transactions? Tell me, students. How many conflicts are there? Yeah. How many dependencies are there? Okay, it is not with respect to consecutive instructions. Okay, if there is a dependency, we can draw an edge. Okay.
All the three conflicts, ma'am, or
To check,
RW.
yeah, to check for conflict serializability, this is for testing this conflict serializability. Conflict serializability, all the conflicts we need to address.
Between T1 and T2, there is a conflict for X.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Okay.
between T2 and T3 also same conflict for X.
Okay.
W of Y and R of Y, T3, T2 and T4, there is a conflict for write and read. WR conflict.
Yeah, yeah.
No, okay, that is also there. And T2 and T3, T4 also there's some conflict.
T1, yeah.
T2
T3.
and T4.
Oh, this one. Okay.
No, W of Y and R of Y.
W of Y. Okay, 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 fine. Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Okay, this one also there, right?
Yes, so RR is not a conflict, no?
Yeah, RR is not a conflict. Yeah, sorry, I have given that, right? Okay. This one will not be there. Yeah. Only this much or any more conflicts are there? Totally 5. So this one is there, right? W of X2 or of X, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So totally 6, sorry, this one is not there, please. Yeah. So totally 6 dependencies are there, right? So we have this much of dependencies, T2 to T3, these instructions, okay, whatever we have just plotted. Okay, T2 to T3, T2 to T1, T3 to T1. So these are all the dependency we have with respect to the transaction. So considering this case, okay, we can draw the graph. Okay, we can draw the graph with respect to 4 transactions, and will be an edge if there is a dependency. Like what the directed, it is a directed edge from the first instruction to the next instruction. Okay, so like what I have done in this figure. Okay. So now while plotting this, we'll be having 6 edges like this. Okay, T1, T2, T4. You can see T1 to T4 we have. Okay, yeah, T1 to T4. Okay, so that is W of X and R of X conflict. Okay, right? So like that we need to plot T1 to T4. So this edge. Okay, W of X to R of X. So like that, we have constructed the graph. Okay, whether it has any cycle.
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. In this graph, there is no cycle formed. If there is no cycle formed, then we can get a serializable schedule. Okay, conflict serializable schedule. That means we need to know in which order it can be executed serially. Okay, so that can also be seen. That can also be done. So that is done by means of topological sorting. Okay, I think you know about topological sorting, and tell me in what way we can execute this transaction to get a serial schedule.
T2, T3, T1, T4.
T2,
T2,
T3, T1, T4. Okay, so how it is done? What we need to calculate in the topological sorting?
in degree should be 0.
Yeah. So in degree and out degree we need to calculate. Okay, so what is the in degree for T1?
2.
2, and out it is 1, right? Okay, and for T2?
0 and 3.
0. Okay, out is 3. Yeah. And for T4, in is 3 and out is
0.
0. And then for T3, in is
1.
Okay, out is 2. So what we have to start with?
T2.
Okay, T2 we have to start with in degree 0. Okay, and then we have to remove these edges and we have to recalculate again. Okay, so that is in here it is 1 and then out equal to 1. Okay, so like that if we recalculate, then we will get this order, right? T2, T3, T1 and T4. Okay, so this way yeah, we'll be able to find out whether the transactions, okay, are conflict serializable or not. Okay, so that is earlier we checked. So by series of swaps of non-conflicting instruction, whether it is yielding to a serial order or not. Okay, that we are checking the same thing only, but we are just doing in a different method. Okay, that is by means of drawing the precedence graph and then finding the dependency and finding the cycle. And if there is no cycle, then in this order, if it is executed, then it may lead to a serial schedule. So the thing is, if we that is finally what we are going to make a decision is this schedule can be executed parallelly, concurrently. Okay, in this order it can be executed. Okay, because it is equivalent to a serial schedule. Equivalent to a serial schedule like this. So this can be executed concurrently, which will not affect the consistency of the database. Since we are checking for conflict serializability, all the conflicts will be addressed. So it will not affect the consistency of the database. Okay, so if it is executed concurrently in this order, it doesn't matter. Okay, concurrently we can execute. So this is what this conflict serializability conveys. Okay, so this is another way for finding. Okay, I think we can, I will give one more example so that I can. Yeah. Okay, students, for this schedule, just find out whether it is conflict serializable. If it is not conflict serializable, if it is conflict serializable, then find out in which order it can be executed to get a conflict serializable schedule. Okay. Find out the answer for this case. I hope all of you are doing. So what is the answer? Students, all of you are doing or not?
Doing.
No.
Doing, ma'am.
Doing, okay.
T2, T3 and T1, ma'am.
Yeah. T2, T3, T1. It is conflict serializable and this is the order. Okay, you can check with this.
What if there are multiple edges? Because here there are some
Multiple?
more than 8. Multiple edges means only one we should consider now, ma'am.
Yeah, one we can consider. No issues. Yeah. But it should not be reversed. Okay, multiple edges in the same direction, it can be replaced with one edge.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So this is what we will do with respect to the conflict serializability. I think, yeah. These are about the transactions. Okay. And now what we can see is concurrency control schemes. So we know that right now regarding the discussion of the transaction, so we need to permit concurrent execution of the transaction, provided that it should not affect the consistent nature of the database. So for that only we are checking for the serializability order and all those things. Okay. So now how to control the concurrent execution of the transaction. Okay. How to control the concurrent execution of the transaction. So that is what we do with respect to concurrency control schemes. To ensure the isolation property, that means one transaction, even though we are executing multiple transactions at a time, the system should not know that those transactions, okay, are executed concurrently. Okay, so that means the results should not affect each other. So for that, we go for log-based protocols. Okay, log-based protocols for ensuring the for controlling the concurrent execution of the transaction. So if it is dependent, then we can better go for serializable order. Okay, so we can serialize the schedules and we serialize the transaction and we can execute. And if we will be able to execute, okay, even though if they are dependent, okay, then we can prefer for concurrent execution of transaction. So there should be a control mechanism for execution for executing the transactions concurrently. So for that only various protocols are available, and one such protocols, okay, is the log-based protocol. And there is also many protocol, graph-based protocols, validation-based protocols, okay, timestamp based protocols. Okay, those two protocols are available for concurrency control. So we'll be discussing only about the log based protocol and the timestamp based protocol. We won't be discussing about the other kind of protocols. Okay, so first we see the basics of log based protocol, and here in the log based protocol, so we need to control the concurrent access to a data item. That is the main idea. Okay, so how we can control the concurrent access to a data item is by means of two modes. first one is the exclusive mode and the second one is shared mode. Okay, so exclusive mode means we can read as well as write the data item. Okay, and this lock is requested by means of lockx instruction, and shared mode means the data item can only be read but we cannot write the data item. Okay, so and these request and granting of the corresponding logs are just done by the concurrency control manager. Okay, so here we in the initially while discussing in the introduction part, we'll discuss about the various components of the database architecture. Okay, so that is we had the file manager, we had the transaction manager, we had the concurrency control manager. So these setup is already available with respect to database administration. So it is the responsibility of the concurrency control manager for providing a lock or unlock for the particular data item. Okay, so this is what the log-based protocols says. And the compatibility matrix says that whenever a particular lock is available, okay, that is held by the data item, but and if there is a request for the lock on the same data item, okay, whether it can be granted or not. Okay, so that deals with the lock compatibility matrix. That means, so for example, the data item q we are having, so that is currently having a shared mode lock. Okay, a transaction is having a shared mode lock on the data item q. Okay, another transaction T2, okay, T1 is having a shared mode lock on the data item. Currently it is holding, and another transaction T2 is asking for any other mode of lock, okay, on the same data item, whether it can be granted or not. So for that only the lock compatibility matrix is constructed. Okay, if it is a shared mode lock means, shared mode means we have discussed right now, it can only read, it cannot write. Okay, it cannot update the data item. Okay, whereas exclusive, both read and write can be done by for the corresponding data item. So now T2 is asking shared mode lock, whether it can be granted.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that is what the compatibility matrix says, it is true. Okay, and then if it is asking exclusive mode lock, whether it can be granted.
No, ma'am.
No. Okay, so that is what here it is meant to be false. Okay, similarly, if it is having an exclusive mode lock and it is T2 is asking for a shared mode lock, whether it can be granted.
No.
No. Okay, so exclusive also cannot be granted. So this is what the lock compatibility matrix says. Okay, if a lock cannot, if only the shared mode lock can be shared, okay, by the transaction, like what we see. Okay, RR conflict, it is allowed. Okay, whether the other kind of conflicts or WR or WW, both are not allowed. All are not allowed. Okay, so that only the lock compatibility matrix also says. So here this is an example for performing the locking. If you want to perform an update on the data item. Okay, so here update on the data item, we will have a exclusive mode lock on the data item, and then we will write the data item. Okay, and and we are unlocking the data item so that it can be used by some other transaction in future. So similarly, here we are locking the data item in exclusive mode because there is a write operation. Once the operations are completed, the data item is unlocked. Similarly, there is another transaction in which we obtain only shared mode lock because there is no write operation. This transaction only displays the values of A and B. Display the value of A plus B. So there is only a shared mode lock on the data item. Okay, so this is an example for the log-based protocol, how it works. Okay, so I think we can see about more in detail about log-based protocol in the next class, because it may take some 15 minutes to explain the next concept, why we go for unlocking and locking the actual data items and all. Okay, so I think we can elaborate in the next class. Okay, thank you, students.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.